April 14th, 1912. The North Atlantic Ocean is pitch black and freezing cold. Cutting through the darkness is a ship, the size of 4 city blocks, moving at nearly full speed. The RMS Titanic was the most ambitious moving object ever constructed. She stretched nearly 900 feet from bow to stern, weighed 46,000 tons, and was powered by engines as tall as a 3-story building. Inside, she was packed with a swimming pool, a squash court, and dining rooms that rivaled London's top hotels. First-class passengers paid the modern equivalent of over $100,000 for a single ticket, securing a spot on a vessel they believed offered absolute safety. The people who built her and the press that covered her departure openly called the ship practically unsinkable. The hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments, designed to keep her afloat even if a quarter of them flooded. This absolute belief in the ship's invulnerability resulted in a vessel functionally unprepared for a crisis. Because designers were certain she couldn't fail, they left her without the equipment or the protocols to handle the reality of the North Atlantic. Despite the champagne and the fanfare at her launch in Southampton, within days, more than 1,500 people would freeze to death in the open ocean. For over a century, the public has accepted a very specific story about how those final hours played out, a narrative heavily shaped by early witness testimony and Hollywood films. But in 2023 and 2024, deep-sea expeditions equipped with LiDAR and 4K cameras traveled to the wreck site. They captured over 16 terabytes of new data, mapping the ship down to the level of individual rivets. This technological evidence is correcting the official record, revealing the physical reality of the collision and sinking before the wreck itself vanishes. The disaster began with an operational failure. The man in charge wanted to arrive in New York ahead of schedule, driving at near maximum speed through ice-filled waters. When the lookouts finally spotted the ice, the crew tried to turn. The ship didn't crash head-on. Instead, it suffered a long, grinding scrape that buckled the steel hull plates for nearly 300 feet below the waterline. Modern simulations calculate the entire physical collision lasted just 6.3 seconds. Moving to the hull's cross-section, the physics become clear. The Titanic was engineered to survive 4 flooded compartments. The iceberg opened gaps in 6. The sinking was a rigid mathematical certainty, dictated by the ship's design limits, brought on by the negligence of moving too fast. When explorer Warwick Ballard finally located the wreck in 1985, he shocked the world by proving the Titanic hadn't sunk in one piece. The ship had broken apart on the surface before descending. Decades later, a deep-sea mapping company called Magellan took this a step further. They spent 3 weeks at the site assembling the most detailed 3D digital reconstruction of the vessel ever created. This new resolution refutes the idea that the hull simply snapped cleanly in half. According to naval architects reviewing the data, the ship was violently torn apart, ripping through the decks with terrifying force. This high-resolution mapping shows that the lifeboat davits were fully deployed and being worked on even as the deck was submerging. By confirming the exact state of this equipment, the data supports survivor accounts that First Officer William Murdoch stayed at his post, eventually being swept away by a wave while trying to launch lifeboats. By analyzing the exact distribution of the debris, researchers are correcting the physical mechanics of the wreck while restoring the honor of the crew members who died doing their duty. In July 2024, researchers from RMS Titanic Inc. returned to the site for their first dive in 14 years. They deployed hypermagnetometers and LiDAR to capture over 2 million new photographs of the debris field. Among the ruins, they found something remarkable: the Diana of Versailles. This 2-foot-tall bronze goddess once stood in the first-class lounge and had been assumed lost forever after its last sighting in 1986. Yet just a short distance from that pristine statue, they documented a massive structural loss. A 15-foot section of the iconic bow railing, the exact spot made famous by modern cinema, has completely collapsed onto the ocean floor. These expeditions are operating on a razor's edge, experiencing extraordinary historical recovery in the exact same moment that the physical structure is failing. The ship is deteriorating at a rapid pace because of iron-eating bacteria. These microorganisms are biologically consuming the steel hull from the inside out, turning the solid metal into brittle, fragile rust. Scientists estimate that within the next 20 to 40 years, the structural integrity will fail completely. The Titanic will collapse into a flat, unrecognizable field of debris on the seafloor. The disaster was a culmination of ignored warnings, high speed in hazardous waters, and a calculated decision to carry fewer lifeboats than there were passengers. No matter how grand the engineering, the ocean does not care. And as the bacteria finish what the iceberg started, our window to uncover the final secrets of the Titanic is rapidly closing.